Finally, the Florida Panthers finally get over the hump over Big Brother, defeating the Tampa Bay Lightning by a final score of 6-1 in Game 5 to finally get a series victory over their division rival in the Battle of Florida.
You're Locked On Panthers, your daily podcast on the Florida Panthers. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And welcome into this third, I don't even know what day of the week it is. It's Tuesday, April 30th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day. Thank you for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. I'm Armando Velez from the Hockey News. You can follow me on X at MonoMan12. Follow the show account on X and Instagram at LO_FLA Panthers. And shout out to the everydayers who come back here and get your daily Florida Panthers fix. Today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. I admit it, I have a competitive side and is a big fan of Monopoly Go, the mobile hit twist on classic Monopoly. So join your friends and download Monopoly Go, now free on the App Store or Google Play. So the Florida Panthers, they finally did it. They returned home in a place that they have played very confidently in the first two games. And the one thing in common that all of these games for the Panthers they had in common, every team that scored first ended up winning the game. And there was plenty of opportunities for the Tampa Bay Lightning, especially with how they started, which the ice was tilted in their direction in the first period mostly. But the Florida Panthers, after a scoreless first period, got it going. And for the Panthers, they found a way and limited stars just like they did in games 1 and 2, and even in game 3, and find themselves in a 6-1 victory in Game 5 to advance to the second round, awaiting the winner of the the Toronto Maple Leafs versus Boston Bruins. But we do have a guest here on the show today to recap this 6-1 victory and a series clincher for the Florida Panthers over Big Brother Tampa Bay Lightning. He is from the podcast that sometimes talks about Panthers hockey, but sometimes they don't. Jacob Langsam from Panther Prairie. Jacob, welcome to the show, my friend.
Armando, thank you for having me back on. I could not possibly be happier to be here right now.
Yes, and if you could hear Jacob's opinions here on this show, talking about tonight's win for the Florida Panthers. But if you also want to hear the unhinged version of it, go listen to Panther Prairie, because per Locked On rules, we are not allowed to swear on this program. But Jacob, let's just go right into this matchup for the Panthers against the Tampa Bay Lightning to finally get that win over the cross-state rival in this series. Obviously, the conversation was a lot of the depth of the Florida Panthers versus the Tampa Bay Lightning. I predicted the Panthers to win this one in 6. I was one game off when it came to this one, but it's funny because you think about both power plays too. When it came to the Florida Panthers and the Tampa Bay Lightning, no one really got anything going. I feel like for the Panthers, going to the box twice in the first period, that was a big momentum shift as far as like not allowing anything to the net, getting a shorthanded goal themselves. Panthers, they were outshot and they didn't get a single shot at the end of in the final 6 minutes of that first period. I mean, but they were still forcing the Tampa Bay Lightning on to the walls. And then Maurice, even towards the end of that first period, he was starting to shift the lines, and it's probably not something that we will that will stick going to from this round, the end of this round to the next. But knowing when to press the right buttons for Coach Maurice in this one, and just switching things up when it came to the lines. Tarasenko goes on line number 3, Tkachuk goes on the first line. But man, what a way to not necessarily play in desperation, but kind of like treating this the game. Son.
Sorry about that. I think you broke up a little bit on my end. That was probably me, not you, but
yeah. So what do you think about Paul Maurice and what he and his ability and what he did to like change the lines even when there wasn't a change in score yet, when it was still scoreless, even after the Tampa Bay Lightning had a disallowed goal?
Yeah, Paul Maurice has done a fantastic job of knowing how to read this Panthers team. We see it time and time again, like you said, knowing when to push the right buttons, uh, and knowing what combinations to go to. Like you know that Barkov, Verhaeghe, Kachuk will find something for you. You know that Lundell, Etu, Reinhardt is a super complementary line. Like he kind of has these go-to safety lines that you can always turn to if whatever you're doing isn't working. And finding that switch when the Panthers really didn't look fantastic in the first period. They certainly turned it up in the last 40 minutes of the game and looked a lot more like the first few games of the series. But just knowing that change was necessary in the moment and knowing exactly when and how to do it, it's something that Paul Maurice has always excelled at. Another fantastic instance of his ability to read his team before things got dire tonight.
Yeah, and for him to plug those pieces in, and it just goes back to really the first days of training camp of using pairs and then shifting other guys along the wing with certain players. I mean, you see that Barkov and Reinhardt together in certain pairs in camp. I mean, Kachuk, Bennett, even though he didn't finish this series. I mean, the best part about this one is, I mean, Sam Bennett, they don't have to worry about playing a game, and then he could still rest up. Still nothing on whether he would play game one of the next series, but still that time to rest up for them. But I mean, you think about for the Panthers, I mean, this one, the last game, 5 of 6 goals allowed were not 5-on-5. And then the Florida Panthers, they come into this one, the first 2 goals for them are one on a 4-on-4, and then the other one shorthanded for them. The first one, Carter Verhaeghe following his own shot, his momentum carrying over right before beating Vasilevsky there. And then after an icing, the Panthers get a draw in their own zone. And then Barkov scores right there. I mean, talk about some momentum shifts. And when you think about the series, I was just looking this up right before we hit record. The Panthers finished 16 of 20 on the PK, 80%. Not near the numbers of the regular season, but when you look at it on the Tampa Bay Lightning side of things, they were floating around like 28-30%, number 1 power play. It feels, and when you talk about the stars of Kucherov, Stamkos has had a great series.
Yes,
you think about that, it was just about knowing to contain guys and knowing that you're not gonna stop them. I mean, Kucherov had a 3-assist game the other night, but I mean, and then you saw the Florida Panthers. They matched the fourth line scoring in Game 3 to Tampa Bay's fourth line scoring. So it wasn't. So you didn't see a game neither where it was Tampa Bay's bottom guys scoring over Florida. I mean, Panthers they even got one towards the end with Evan Rodriguez on that one timer when Kevin Stenlund just had Michael Eyssimont on skates there. So just for the Panthers, just depth was the key for this one, and we said it as far as on paper, and it proved it even in the clincher.
Yeah, I mean that Stenlund, that had to be the moment of the game for me. Kevin Stenlund dangling Eyssimont. I mean, that was such a great depiction of this series as a whole, because that's that depth that you're talking about. That's the Panthers' depth just totally outplaying the Lightning depth. And you get Evan Rodriguez getting his first goal of the series as a result. You got a beautiful little highlight reel assist out of Kevin Stenlund that happened to also come off of a gorgeous breakout pass by Vladimir Tarasenko. Let's not ignore that piece of that play. That first pass out from Tarasenko to Stenlund to allow the one-on-one against Eyssimont was huge. I mean, yeah, shutting down the stars also, though. I don't want to just focus on the depth, because yeah, if your stars are matching up 1-to-1, then having the better depth is obviously super important. The stars were not matching up 1-to-1.
Yeah.
Outside of Game 4, Kucherov, invisible. Hedman, invisible. Point, mostly not super visible. Stamkos is the one guy on that team who was consistently performing each of those 5 games. And then you have Kachuk with a 9-point series. You have Carter with another batch of hugely important goals as he is wont to score. You have Barkov getting 2 goals tonight, but playing phenomenal shutdown defense and racking up a couple of assists throughout the series. The top end talent of the Florida Panthers dominated the top end talent of the Tampa Bay Lightning. And the special teams differential was a highlight of that. Only 4 power play goals on the series for Tampa, like you mentioned. But a real nice shorthanded goal for the Panthers tonight on one of those Tampa power plays, and we'll talk about that a little bit later when you ask a certain question about when do I think the tides of the game turned. Little spoiler hint there for you. Yeah, I mean, it was such a fun series. Game 5 in particular, obviously, was just the icing on the cake of slaying the dragon. I mean, I really couldn't have asked for much more out of this game.
You mentioned Tkachuk's 9 points. Carter Verhaeghe also got 9 points, 5 goals, 4 assists. So just scoring big goals and just coming up in big moments too for him. And also, right before we transition over to segment 2, I also want to discuss more of the shot differential in the first 40 minutes, where the Panthers had 13 shots on special teams, 3 of them shorthanded and 10 on the man advantage. And also that power play at the end of the second, even though the Panthers didn't score, getting that zone time and for them was really what Evan Rodriguez was talking about post game when discussing how calm the mood was, because the third period was a little conservative for the Panthers. They weren't really doing much, and then the Panthers just all of a sudden exploded. But after 40, special team shots for Tampa Bay were 1 on each side, 1 on the power play and 1 on the penalty kill. So through 40 minutes, 1 shot on 3 power plays for Tampa Bay. That's not going to win you a lot of hockey games against this Panthers team. But we're going to transition over to segment number 2, where we're going to discuss more about when we thought this game was won or lost and our 3 stars. We're going to discuss this and more here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. And I admit it that I have a little bit of a competitive side. And all right, game off. We got to pause here and talk more about Monopoly Go. Well, I know what you're saying. Flag on the play. You already talked about that. But there's just so much good stuff in this game. In Monopoly Go, you can team up with friends for time tournaments where you can work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock. There's so much to get. And you can have unique stickers that you could trade with friends to compete, albums for big prizes, cool playing pieces to travel the boards with, hilarious emojis for taunting friends when you smash the buildings, and heist their vaults. With Monopoly Go, feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own unique mini games like digging for treasure or a robot pachinko machine. There's always something fun to discover with Monopoly Go. So get off the bench and go download it now for free on the Google Play or App Store. Game on. The Locked On NFL Mock Draft is available now. The ultimate 6-episode series on Locked On NFL Draft to hear who the Locked On experts are picking on every NFL franchise, with live reactions from the local college football experts and even fantasy football angle. The Locked On NFL Mock Draft available now on Locked On NFL Draft on YouTube or wherever you get your podcast. Back on this Tuesday, April 30th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So April 30th. April 30th was a very special day on this day last year. Carter Verhaeghe scoring that overtime winner in Boston to advance to the second round. So one day, almost, well, actually, it's a leap year. So exactly 365 days, Jacob, since that. And I have a confession to make. I jinxed game 4 because in the press box, I went up to Bill Lindsay and I said, how great would it be for the Panthers to clinch this game on the anniversary of your goal from 96? He's like, yeah, that would be great. So I'm going to take blame for game 4 for not clinching on that night. But for this one, for for the Panthers, 3 stars of the game for me. I'm gonna go with Alexander Barkov, Captain Goon, getting 2 important goals. Carter Verhaeghe getting 2 goals on the night, and Sergei Bobrovsky going 31 of 32. And even when Victor Hedman scored his scored from the point and it got through, I don't know if it was loud enough on TV, Jacob, but the Bobby chants even after a goal against just spoke volumes about how this region feels about this man. The run last year that had rippling effects in this fan base on just the hype and the buzz around the Florida Panthers, the loudest chant in the arena in pregame intros too. So just Bobrovsky just deserves so many flowers about what he's done in different situations too. So those are my 3 stars of the game. How about yours?
Honestly, I hate to be boring, but it's the same 3 players. I mean, those are your difference makers tonight. Barkov had a fantastic game, including 2 goals, including the game winner, including a shorthanded.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he was everywhere you needed him to be, and he made the statement tonight. Carter, what else can we say about Carter Verhaeghe? Another hugely important couple of goals for him, an empty netter, and like you said, just he just has this penchant for scoring important goals, and no different tonight. And Bobrovsky, this was a great series for him, and tonight was a fantastic game. I mean, I think he deserved a shutout tonight for the performance he put on. That Hedman slapper was. There aren't a lot of goalies who are going to stop that. The guy on the other side of the ice wouldn't have stopped that either.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry to be boring and not have anything to add to why we have the 3 stars that we do, but it really is just those 3 guys. They were the ones who made the statements tonight.
Yeah, I'm looking up Sergei Bobrovsky's final numbers as we speak. The save percentage won't tell the whole story of it saying 896, but still 278 GAA for him. You're still keeping yourselves in this game. I mean, this series for the most part. I mean, yeah, you get 2 empty net goals at the end, one by Mikkola, the other one by Verhaeghe. But I mean, these games were close. These games were so hard fought. You feel like you talk about earning a series too for the Panthers. Yeah. How as depleted as their depth was, you really gotta appreciate how the Panthers just kept fighting. And I mean, Erod spoke about how defeating your best rival, you're just gonna have to go ahead and defeat your second best rival. That's really the mindset. It's just like, okay, you celebrate. Ekblad was talking about celebrating this for a day and then moving on to the next one. So that was that I love the mindset of this team that they have for getting one, celebrating today, and then moving on, because they know that this is a journey. But the moment where I thought this game was won or lost for the Panthers was the moment where it was right before the second intermission, and the review that was originally called no goal, but from the Panthers. Sergachev's shot from the point got through, and Cirelli was fighting Bob for position, which John Cooper said Bobrovsky gave up on the play. He was complaining about it post game, but I mean, you see him make contact there, and it was a pretty long review, but and the Panthers got a power play out of that. So I thought that was the power play I was talking about, where the Panthers were really starting to get really in their zone time, and that's where after 40 you see 10 power play shots for them, and that's my moment where I thought the game was won for them.
I'm going to play a little misdirection from the hint that I gave earlier, because Barkov's shorthanded goal, while fantastic, was not the moment that I thought this game was won. It was Barkov's second goal where I really thought, all right, I can start being excited. I'm done holding my breath. And the reason for that isn't just that Barkov scored a goal to put the Panthers up 2. It was that Alexander Barkov, celebrated his goal.
Mm-hmm.
Barkov's goal celebration is the moment that I knew this game was over.
Yeah, you don't see many of them from him. I mean, the one regular season game that I could think of was that Boston game last year at the end of January, right before the All-Star break, and you see him fist pumping towards the in the last maybe 10 seconds of the game. For those who need a reminder, Sam Reinhart scores the game winner in less than a minute in 3-on-3 overtime there. But when you see Barkov celebrating a guy who stays even keel, and even Ekblad speaks about how it's a little hard to stay even keel in these moments when you know that this is such an exciting time. These guys have especially been here for a long time, and you're seeing them celebrate cups, even going to the final in 2015 before losing. You're seeing that across, and you're just consistently thinking that I want that to be us. I want that to be us. So
right.
It's got to be really great for them to really get that. And listen, that goal was 11:06 into the period. We and Panthers were getting their chances. Tkachuk, man, that guy was crashing in net. He was getting a multitude of chances on the night. So wish that he could have gotten on the board too. But the fact that they made Vasilevsky work, and this series was not lost by Vasilevsky whatsoever. He gave the Florida Panthers a heck of a challenge.
Yeah. I mean, Vasilevsky, I am starting to question his efficacy moving forward. In all honesty, I am getting to that point. He certainly didn't lose the Lightning this series, but I wouldn't say that he would have been the reason that they won it either. Bobrovsky is the reason that the Lightning lost that series. Bobrovsky and Verhaeghe, I will say, and Tkachuk. I mean, yeah, I don't know. There's not much else to really comment on there. Vasilevsky he was fine. The Panthers made him look human, and that's the key to beating Andrei Vasilevsky. If you can make him look human, you're going to be able to win. And one note in particular about Vasilevsky, he hates point shots. If you go back and watch like Vasilevsky game tape, a lot of Vasilevsky game tape, he is not like the one significant weakness in his game, or I should say notable, not necessarily significant because it's Andrei Vasilevsky. He's the best goalie of this era, of this generation, I will say. Because Bobrovsky I consider part of like the last generation. One of Vasilevsky's notable weaknesses is that he has a tough time controlling shots from the point if they get through cleanly. And that you saw that in action with Aaron Ekblad's blast from the point that created that huge rebound, which allowed for Barkov's shorthanded goal in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
So the Panthers figured out how to exploit his weaknesses, and they capitalized on that. They made him look human. That's how they won the series.
Yeah, and whenever you just create that traffic up front and you take the eyes away, that's going to do a lot of wonders for him. And also, Vasilevsky, stick handling right behind the net. I mean, there were times where he was mishandling, and there was one play in particular where Barkov tripped him and had a centering feed, but Vasilevsky got back in time I believe it did. I don't believe it was even counted a shot on goal, but as he was blocking a centering feed, but they could have counted that. That's something I got to look back at. but yeah, they definitely made him work in the series, and good for the Panthers. And you found a way. That's really what it came down to. You found a way, and now the Panthers get some rest, and they get to move on and get ready for their round two opponent, whoever that may be. But that would give us a good opportunity to transition over to segment number 3. We're going to discuss more about now what is the mindset going forward now that the Panthers are getting some rest. When do we think game 1 will be, 2, and more here on the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. And it's playoff time in the NBA and NHL. Baseball's in full swing, and FanDuel is your place to bet on every game. Right now, new customers get $150 in bonus bets, guaranteed. That's $150, win or lose. Bet on everything from slap shots to home runs to slam dunks, all on an app that's safe, secure, and easy to use. What are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon and make your first bet an automatic win. FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Segment number 3 here on this Tuesday, April 30th edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day here on a Tuesday, where the Florida Panthers defeat the Tampa Bay Lightning by a final score of 6-1 at home at Emirates Bank Arena to clinch the series against Tampa Bay. Now they are moving on to round 2, where they'll be waiting the winner of Boston Toronto, which their game will be played tomorrow, their game 5, and things are falling apart in Toronto. The looks like that there isn't going to be a goaltending rotation in Boston, so that is one thing to keep an eye out now. Now we just got to watch some hockey, and hey, that's a beautiful thing when you and I don't have to worry about the team that we cheer for / cover, and we could just relax and watch the hockey. But I've been studying a little bit of the rotations based on venue availability, and also MSG will be likely having 2 teams in round 2. Both of them have home court / home ice. A possible game 7 of the Knicks would be Saturday, so maybe that could force the New York Rangers game 1 to be possibly on Sunday or Tuesday. So if I had to guess, somewhere around there is going to be the Panthers playing game 1 either Sunday, Monday, and if they do the Sunday, it's going to be a 2-day gap, and game 2 would be on that Wednesday. So this is just a guess. This is no sources. That game 1 is likely going to be Monday based on that rotation, because TV networks want to have their double headers too. So that's a way of looking at that. And the best thing we could want is the Toronto Maple Leafs to go into Boston and win tomorrow and just extend that series. Yep. And hopefully that there is that whole stop crying bro on the bench from Willie Nylander to Mitch Marner can create a little bit of a boost, because there is a lot of pressure going on in Toronto that with the new GM there, Sheldon Keefe might not last long too in this one. So that is something to look forward to. But Jacob and I will not be doing we want fill in the blank, because we saw a little bit of a lesson from a fan base just north of the border. But so what I'm just gonna go to the rest of the week just so relaxed, watch some hockey, and just the Panthers won't be practicing tomorrow. They won't be doing any activities. They won't even do media availability tomorrow, so at least from the sounds of it. So how are you looking at these next few days right before the Panthers take the ice again in a game setting?
It's like you said, there's still a lot of great hockey that we just get to sit back, relax, and enjoy. A lot of really interesting series still happening, a lot of very potentially interesting results. I've got a concert to go to on Saturday, so I'm very happy that the Panthers will not be playing in Game 7. Because I will be out of town and would not be able to watch or cover it.
Oh no!
I'm headed up to Orlando because that's the closest that this particular band is coming to South Florida.
Oh, you'll be in my neck of the woods. Which band?
In your neck of the woods. A band called Spanish Love Songs. They do not sing in Spanish at all.
Oh, not familiar with them.
You should check them out. They're very good, especially if you're sad. This is going to be a very fun week moving forward. A lot of good hockey, as long as the Panthers don't have to play on Saturday, because I won't be able to be there. As far as looking ahead to round 2, you're right. We don't need to chant about who we want to play, because it's either going to be the team we beat in round 1 last year or the team we beat in round 2 last year. Mm-hmm. Both of those teams are worse than they were last year, and the Panthers are better than they were last year. I'm not guaranteeing anything on Locked On this Tuesday, April 30th edition. but I also am looking forward to round 2 regardless of the opponent.
The Panthers' last road game outside of the state of Florida was April 6th. By the time they hit the road again outside of Florida, it'll be over a month. That finish, that 4-game finish to the season, and especially that Toronto game where I'm still in shock weeks later. That was on April 16th. We're at April 30th now. That's 2 weeks ago from that day that everything just flipped. And it's funny because the week before I was thinking, okay, except that the Panthers are playing Toronto, and then the whole narrative of you don't want to play Tampa Bay because they have the championship pedigree. But then the moment they won, it was a sense of excitement because this was your chance. And they passed with flying colors there. So I just the roller coaster of emotions, the flip of the switch to just saying it's that whole Latin phrase amor fati, accept your fate when it comes to who is in front of you, because these teams don't run away from certain opponents. The Panthers did not. Obviously would have seen them. You would have seen them not given an effort against Toronto had that been the case. But it's just a all gas no brakes mentality for the Panthers there. And a month, Jacob, a full month of no road hockey outside. And hey, it's not. And based on their style of play, they play a road style of game where they don't need the matchups. Their forecheck travels with them, overs, timely goaltending. I don't think it's going to be such an issue getting back to the road. And the fact that you still get the rest and you start at home, it's can't ask for anything better.
Yeah, that's a big thing also here with the Panthers being done already while some other series are still going on. You know, the players get to come home. They get to sleep in their own beds for a week or so. They get to eat their own food for a week or so. They get to use their facilities for a week or so, give or take a few days. I mean, they get to come home. They get to relax. They get to live their lives on their terms. Round 2 starts next week. I mean, the players have to be over the moon about this. It's a few extra days for Sam Bennett to recover. It's a few days for Sergei Bobrovsky to lay on the beach and watch his sunrises and just enjoy the South Florida life before getting back in net against an NHL team. I mean, the Panthers have put themselves in a fantastic position.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, can't ask for. It's definitely something that for the Panthers, it's if you want to win a championship, you got to have some short series, and the earlier, the better, because you're not taking those a lot of those bruises because the hits just were like a ton of hits in this series, but because we have one of the hosts of Panther Purry here, we want to have a little bit of Purry at the end. But it's funny because I wanted to ask you, but I actually have some myself, some Purry.
Ooh, all right.
So I don't know if you saw the tweet earlier about ticket prices for the home games in this region. So Panthers had a full barn with the Heat and the Marlins in action. So I believe I saw a tweet.
Playoff game.
And the Heat had a playoff game too. So I saw a tweet saying for SeatGeek, $57 for like the Heat Celtics, $52 for Panthers Lightning, and then the Marlins, $1.
I did see this tweet.
I just it's not even painful anymore, but just saw that one and I'm just like thinking, wow. But in relation to the Panthers, though, the fact that you have a metropolis of 4 million plus people, an event-driven town, and then proving that, staying with the topic on hand, proving that when you win, hello, Alex Morello, if you win, the fans will come, and the chanting na 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 hey hey goodbye to your cross-state rival. I mentioned earlier, Bobrovsky, the Bobby chants after a goal against too. I mean, what more can you say about Florida hockey culture in general? Because this is coming from a guy who spent 3 straight days of going to hockey games, Amalie Arena on Saturday, Orlando Bears yesterday, and Emirates Bank Arena today. So I'm seeing the game grow with my very eyes too. But how just when you heard it on TV, those chants saying goodbye to the Tampa Bay Lightning, how'd you feel?
That was just pure bliss. I mean, we've never gotten to do that before. We just have never gotten to do that. This is the Panthers' first ever playoff series win against Tampa. So we've never had the luxury of the na 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 hey hey goodbye chant to them. They've done it to us a couple of times.
Yeah.
Third time's the charm, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, the Bobby chants, even after the goal against, because he had also just made a huge save, the aftermath of which led to the Hedman goal. But it was still a tremendous save to keep the Panthers lead at that time. So very well deserved chance. I mean, I could hear them. I'm sure they were thunderous in the arena. And we could hear it pretty clearly over the TV. I mean, we're in such a great time for the Panthers in terms of, commitment to winning, commitment to building a good team, commitment to building a championship team, I should say. And the fans are responding, and the population of Broward County and Palm Beach County, Dade County is responding. Like you said, full barn. I mean, on a night where the Miami Heat have a playoff game as well, the Panthers were sold out. Maybe that's partially because the Heat are not in as great a position as the Panthers, but that's neither here nor there. It's a series clinching game at Amaranth Bank Arena. And you mentioned earlier on in the show that you jinxed the Panthers in Game 4 by mentioning to Billy Lindsay. I don't think you did. I think the Panthers preferred to win the series on home ice. Not that they threw the game, not that they threw Game 4, but that was a game that you knew that Tampa was going to come out swinging. Game 4. That was an empty the tank game for them, to use a phrase that TJ actually used on the Panther pre-post game recap that will also be coming out on Tuesday. It was an empty the tank game for them. The Panthers knew if they're going to take it to us tonight, let them. If we don't pull off the sweep, we'll bring it back Game 5. They'll be gassed. We'll still have our legs. Bigger fish to fry moving forward. They wanted to win it at home. That's my view.
Yeah, and I guess that's what they mean when the pregame presentation has the whole "hit me with your best shot." So
exactly.
Maybe that's the message that they were sending. But Jacob, I want to thank you so much for joining me on this edition of the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, doing this post-game edition where the Florida Panthers defeat the Tampa Bay Lightning 6-1 and have clinched the series in 5 games. Tell everybody where they can find you and your work online, my friend.
Sure. You can find me on X at PTPJacob. I think that's the first time I ever called it X and not Twitter. You can find me on X at PTPJacob. You can find my work wherever you get your podcasts. Just search Panther Paris. I believe just searching Florida Panthers will also bring it up. The podcast account on Twitter, where we talk a little bit more in detail about the Panthers in particular, is at Panther Paris. My account is a little bit more Paris than Panther, outside of game days in particular. Yeah.
Lots of Pokemon. So
yes.
Follow for those tweets too. Thank you, Jacob, and I will see you very soon, my friend.
Thanks for having me, Armando.
And if you like what you're hearing, please subscribe to the podcast to be notified every single time the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast jumps into your podcast feed. Don't forget to also subscribe to the other shows, Locked On NHL Network, including Locked On NHL, Locked On Fantasy Hockey with Livingstone and Stu Roden, and Locked On NHL Prospects. Thank you once again for making the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast your first listen of the day. So I'm Armando Velez. with Jacob Langsam. And you've been listening to the Locked On Florida Panthers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, where it's your team every day.